Nick, I guess this time of year we look really closely at lifestylers and feeding their stock.
Yes, when I got up this morning there was a nice fresh bite in the ear for the first time. I noticed it. So I guess it's time to start thinking about feed provision through the winter months. And that's exceptionally and very specifically important to small acre farmers. I mean, it's a very, very difficult task to manage feed in small acreages, and typically these guys often don't have the generations and dearth of knowledge that commercial farmers have got. And in actual fact, these 10-acre blocks are exceptionally hard to manage as far as nutrition provision goes through the winter months, Rob.
And at the moment, of course, it looks nice and green because we've had just enough rain, but that's not going to keep them going for 3 or 4 months.
No, absolutely. So as soon as ground temperatures start to plummet, we're just going to get virtually no growth at all. And that's the horrid thing about the Canterbury Plains, is we have these two very, very unproductive parts of the year: the summer months on unirrigated land where we've got virtually no growth because of no water, and then of course the winter months when we got the frosts on the ground and we have very, very low ground temperatures and very poor grass growth. And so of course that has a major effect on what sort of nutrition is in front of animals, and in particular when we're talking about sheep and cattle. Often we can have the situation where we've got pregnant animals that are not only needing to keep themselves maintained, but they're growing animals or calves or lambs inside themselves that take priority on as far as energy requirements goes, and often results in major health problems for the animal itself.
I guess a lot of people will think they just throw a bale of hay over the fence.
Exactly, and that's the biggest error that we see, and as I've said time and time again, we just deal with the downside of that. The bottom
You're the
of
ambulance at the bottom of the
bottom
cliff.
of the cliff situation, exactly, Rob, every single year. And so I think people need to understand that the energy requirement, and energy really being the limiting nutrient when we're talking about pregnant stock, stock require not only a base energy level to maintain themselves, but at different physiological stages, particularly pregnancy and lactation. Of course, on top of that basic maintenance requirements, we're also needing energy to grow lambs or babies inside the animal, and then once they're born, very significantly, we're wanting to produce milk to feed those animals before they're weaned and able to gain nutrition from the pasture itself. And actually, a peak lactational ewe or cow can be requiring 3 times or more the energy levels that they would be required just to maintain themselves. And unfortunately, very high dry matter, low leaf products such as hay just don't cut the mustard as far as maintaining good pregnancies and things. So
It must be hard to tell, because I mean, cattle, excuse me, a cattle beast will bellow if it's hungry, but sheep don't.
Yeah, but I mean, as soon as when you do see even sheep being fed out, they do vocalise and get quite excited with the yummies that are being put in front of them. But yeah, it's very difficult, and actually, to be totally honest with you, I think a small acre property is very ill equipped to financially efficiently anyway maintain pregnant animals. And my personal view is they should look very, very hard at their ability to actually do any breeding at all. That's fine if they do and they've got provision to do so, but it requires a lot of planning.
And a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money, and that's where the financial efficiencies come into it. If your lifestyle, your rural lifestyle, outweighs what you want financially to get off or maintain in an equilibrium your property, well then that's fine. But people need to understand that it's going to cost a lot of money, and it is going to cost decent level of nutritional supplementation to maintain a pregnancy on a small block.
It must be tough for somebody who loves their little number of animals to have to sort of say, well, we're going to send you off because we can't afford to feed you.
Yeah, but it's easier to do that in advance and plan in advance than to actually be facing very dramatically major problems and often at the 11th or even the 13th hour when it's far too late. And I guess that's another important factor for lifestylers in particular, is it's an important time of the year to not only just look at stock out the window and check that the troughs are full and not iced over, but there is occasions through the winter where you really, especially with sheep and full fleece, you really need to get your hand on the animal and assess what sort of body condition they're in and make sure they're not in condition loss during pregnancy.
So really it's a case of look very closely at what you're carrying and make some decisions. Talk to your vet perhaps about nutrition.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be your vet. Maybe there's a commercial farmer around the place that you're friendly with, but definitely good knowledge and forward planning well before the critical times. That's what's necessary, and very, very important from a welfare perspective, in particularly welfare perspective with small acre blocks.
So planning is the take-home word.
Yep, absolutely. And don't be scared to get knowledge, as you've mentioned, from your local veterinary surgeon, from the local commercial farmer around the road that you've had a few beers with at the pub, anything like that. Don't be too scared or proud. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Exactly. And the other thing is that there's no such thing as a dumb question, and your farming neighbour or in fact your veterinarian would prefer that you did ask rather than have animals suffer.